Hey guys, this is another 8th grade American history video from me, Coach Goodrich. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and for subscribe for more additional content that's coming. Got a couple more videos that we're going to upload before the end of the school year. Um, right now, we're going to be dealing with a time period immediately after World War II, or excuse me, immediately after World War One, which is the 20s and 30s, specifically the Roaring Twenties, the Great Depression, and the New Deal. Really going to get into how World War One contributed to the excess of the 20s, how that led into the crippling depression, and how the depression helped to get FDR elected, who started the New Deal, and finally how we got out of the Great Depression, which is World War II, which is going to be talked about in Unit 11, and the next and probably final unit for the semester. So this is Unit 10, Roaring Twenties, Great Depression, and the New Deal. Central questions. What made life so different in the years following World War I? And how specifically did FDR impact not only the U.S. but the world during his years in office? So go ahead and pause the video here so you can write these down, and we'll answer these questions as we go through the unit. All right. So after World War I, America wanted to get back to being America. We had a yearning for normalcy. We wanted to return to free market, to capitalism, reduction in federal spending, and most importantly, isolationism in foreign affairs. We did not want to get involved in any more entangling alliances like we were, like kind of brought us into the war that happened just before this. We wanted to be America and stay that way, not worry about anybody else but ourselves. One of the good things about war is that typically it makes the economy grow and grow very quickly. So our economy from before the wartime is going to recover. It's going to grow very, very much. Business is going to expand, due in part to the government lowering its federal spending, which in turn lowers taxes, which helps people keep more money, which lets them spend more money, like on starting businesses. You see, it's a big cycle. Due to mass production and innovation, you get things like Henry Ford cars available to the public, commercialized airplanes, plastic products, restaurants, hotels. New affordable goods are going to flood the market that no longer can just be bought by the wealthy, but now can also be bought by the middle class, which is growing. So things like vacuum cleaners, refrigerators, typewriters, telephones, Model T cars from Ford. Roaring 20s. Because of the strong economy, the U.S. is now considered a consumer culture. New products are going to make life easier, going to give people more what we're going to call leisure time, more time just to sit around doing nothing. You got washing machines, refrigerators, etc. Advertising is going to become very, very popular. Radio mostly, billboards, etc. And you're also going to see a rise of people buying on credit. Now, credit was kind of always a thing, but this is when it first becomes like a monetized asset that people can use. This is an arrangement for buying something, usually something big like a car or a house, with borrowed money and then paying that loan back, usually with a little bit of interest added on there. So it allows people that can't necessarily afford to pay for something all up front to be able to buy things and take them home. And it's going to become a major, major part of the U.S. economy during this time and, of course, to this day. The stock market in the 1920s, we're going to be enjoying a bull market, which means that it's going to be steadily growing. More and more Americans begin to invest their money into stocks because they see it as a sure way to make a little money back, which is not always going to be the case. Examples of credit looks like a icebox or refrigerator up in the top right corner. You can save money if you buy your GE General Electric now before prices rise. Prices as low as $149 plus tax and delivery, or 25 cents a day after a small down payment. And then your clothing or tailor company over to the side, $1 per week for things. And of course, your credit cards. Stock market. New trends in pop culture. Citizens, because not having to work as much, now have leisure time. The average work week during the mid-20s was 45 hours a week compared with 70 in 1850. And instead of working 7 days a week, most people are working 5. This is our normal, 8 to 5, 9 to 5 business ideas that we now have, and kind of sets the whole idea of the weekend and the weekday, which was not really a thing until this point. Question: what do people do when they have free time? Now they have this time to sit around. They got Saturday mornings, they got Sunday mornings, they got all this time to kind of sit around. People are going to turn to pop culture, and the 1920s becomes known as the first time period for pop culture to really take off, and that has really defined our society as America, especially our modern society since then. You got heroes, you got Babe Ruth, Amelia Earhart, Henry Ford, new types of media, radio, magazines, movies, starting off with the silent films, black and white films, and finally getting into the talkies, is what they call them, a little bit later on in the decade. And the arts, music in the jazz age, nightclubs, artists, writers. My favorite, personally, my favorite time period in terms of American literature, which is the Lost Generation, the Hemingways, F. Scott Fitzgerald's, really modernist writing starts at this time. However, good times cannot last forever. As you guys are going to see, and this decade is really going to end in a crash. Literally. The election of 1928, Republican Herbert Hoover is elected president amid economic and social optimism. However, troubling signs of the economy are beginning to show, specifically in three areas. Agriculture. After World War I, farmers' crops are no longer needed in such high supply, and they face debt and bankruptcy. As people begin to figure out ways to store food longer, like in refrigerators, they don't need to go to the grocery store every day. They don't need to go to the farmer's market every day or every other day. They don't need to worry about growing their own or buying someone else if they can grow their own like they did with their victory gardens. Also, farmers began to grow so much or so many types of crops in such a great abundance in order to feed everybody during the war that it drives the prices way down after the war. So in order to make ends meet, they need to borrow more money to buy more land, to grow more crops in order to even break even. This is going to lead to a lot of people losing a lot of money and losing their farms, their homes, and almost everything they have, especially in the farming community. Uneven wealth. Worker output increased, like the things that they were able to make in the less amount of time, but the wages did not grow as quickly. Industrial workers moved from being poor to being less poor, kind of the lower middle class. And then the expansion of credit. The accumulation of debt from cars, houses, radios began to increase as more and more people, some of those probably should not have been extended credit, they should not have had credit extended to them, began to buy things that they probably could not afford. There's Herbert Hoover. He is, at the beginning of this time, very, very popular for his work during World War I with the U.S. Food Administration. As stock market rises in the 1920s, people began to do something called buying on the margin to increase their profit. What this means is they begin to borrow large amounts of money to buy stock. However, when the share prices drops, creditors demand the money that they are owed. As a result, homes, cars, or any other asset that's put up as collateral is sold to repay the debt. Risky way to play the stock market. You can make a lot of money that way, but you can also lose everything that way, which is what happened to most people. And really, if we can point to one finite day where the Great Depression started, it is October 29th, 1929, known as Black Tuesday. It's a huge drop in the stock market and the start of the Great Depression. What started this was that investors, after losing a lot of money buying on the margin and through their credit and probably unwise credit investments, begin to sell those investments, pushing prices down. Investors lose a total of $30 billion in one day, which at that point was the most money that had ever been lost on the stock market in one day. Now, these are investors and people who have their money invested with different stock markets outside of the stock exchange building in New York City, trying to figure out ways for their investors to go in and sell what they can in order to get some of their money back. The banking crisis. As the stock market crashed, there was concern that banks that was holding the money of individuals and families would close because of bad loans to these stockbrokers and farmers. People with bank accounts rushed to withdraw their money. This is starting what is called a bank run, when customers simultaneously withdraw their money out of a fear that banks will close. And this is, millions and millions of people did this. By 1933, a fifth of the banks that were operating in 1930 were closed. millions of people see their savings vanish like that. All right, this is where we're going to stop for today. For the mini quiz, make sure you answer questions 1 through 5. You can either do it on your own sheet of paper. I've submitted a document on RenWeb from the document section, lesson plans that you can download and write on. Take a picture, submit it through Remind of your answers, or you may also use the online test feature on RenWeb. The online test feature will also be 5 questions. It will also be multiple choice, so you guys can go on there and answer it that way if you want to. But you need to make sure that you submit these to me by the end of the day, so that I can grade these and we can move on. And then in a couple of days, we'll get back to this. I appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you guys soon.